ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back into another edition of Key Time Sports. And this is my weekend reaction from all marquee NBA matchups. Now, the first game I'm going to get into is the one that you see right here, the Los Angeles Lakers and the Denver Nuggets. The Los Angeles Lakers really just cooked up on the Denver Nuggets Saturday night. And let me tell you, this is the Lakers' second win over the Denver Nuggets in the last 15 outings. So that is a monumental win in and of itself. Now, let me just tell y'all about the previous coaches that couldn't find a way to do nothing with what the previous Laker coaches that couldn't find anything to do with the Nuggets and trying to get them a win or nothing. So we're gonna go back to Darvin Ham. Darvin Ham, he didn't know what he was doing from offense, defense, to defending players on their spots and everything. And also Frank Vogel, he didn't know what to do with the Denver Nuggets, particularly Nikola Jokic, the Joker. He didn't know what to do. But then you get JJ Redick, who was a podcaster just like me in that situation, and then a team gives him an opportunity to coach that team, and look where it's at now. They 34 and 21, and they are the fifth spot. No, excuse me, they are the fourth spot in the West right now. So anybody, no matter what line of work you're in, anybody can be a head coach now in NBA, MLB, no matter what. You see what JJ Redick doing. I mean, you can see these stats right here. Rui Hachimura, 21 points. Then you had LeBron James with his regular 25. Luka Doncic, 32 points. Then you had Austin Reeves. Luka Doncic, he came out and said, he's like, I ain't forgot how to play basketball. Yeah, how to play basketball. It just took him 3 games to figure out what the Lakers scheme was. Now let me tell you, the bench in this case for the Lakers, it didn't do much, but just the Lakers getting a win over the Nuggets, it's good enough for me. Because before they won over the Nuggets Saturday night, they had lost 9 straight games. And let me tell you, they lost 9 straight games within 10 points of the Nuggets. I ain't got to go back to the playoffs last year or the playoffs the previous 2 years. I don't, because game 4 last year they lost by 2. Game 3 they won. Game 2 they lost by 4, and then game 1 of last year's first round playoff series they lost by 6. Then the previous year after that they lost by, I'm gonna give y'all the numbers. They lost by 7, 8, 9, and 4 in those three games in the playoffs. So, ladies and gentlemen, what I can say about the Los Angeles Lakers, they are a team that's a force to be reckoned with now. Personally, I like the trade that Dallas made with the Lakers. Now everybody is saying that they didn't know about it. That's a bunch of bull in my eyes. Everybody knew the Mavericks top player was going to LA before everybody found out. I was saying this 2 years ago that Luka, he doesn't like Dallas. He doesn't like how he's being used in Dallas, and he gonna get out of Dallas, which he did. And last year, like I said, it goes on with last year. He didn't like how he was. He didn't like how he was being played. Then the Mavericks, they get all the way to the NBA Finals, and then they lose. Now let's see what they can do. Now let's see what the Mavericks can do now. But back to the Lakers. Lakers in the next couple of weeks, they could go on a 7, 8 game winning streak, and they can pretty much be in that top 3 or 4 spot come the NBA playoffs. So now, Lakers, I'm done with that. I'm done with that take. Let me get on over to these Denver Nugget fans and all of this trash talk that they was talking over the past couple of months, talking about that the Nuggets will sweep the Lakers in a playoff series. Can you see that Nuggets fans? Can you see that happening now? I mean, can you see? Because I already done said that your bench played like total garbage Saturday night. You only had 21 points off your bench. 8 other players ain't even put up a damn basket. And then you have your starters. Let me see. Your starters, Aaron Gordon, 24 points. Michael Porter Jr., 13. You had Nikola Jokic with a triple double, but he didn't score at the same efficiency like he's used to. He had 12, 10, and 13, and that didn't cut it. The Lakers played defense. The Nuggets had 23 turnovers, and the Lakers only had 9 turnovers. And the Lakers had the lead the entirety of this game. When you look at this, and I've been saying this throughout the entirety of this season, the Denver Nuggets bench has some lapses. The Denver Nuggets bench is not like the one that they had a couple years ago when they won the championship. I mean, you can see it. The bench that they have now, who outside of Russell Westbrook can give you 15 points every night? And to be exact, Saturday night he gave you 17 points. And Jalen Pickett, he had 3 points, and Julian Swather, he only had two. Everybody else didn't do nothing. So the Denver Nuggets, they have some decisions to make. For the Lakers, ooh boy, that purple and gold. Let's see if they can go for banner number 18 and tie the Boston Celtics. Now, I ain't gonna get ahead of myself. Lakers fans out there, please do not get ahead of yourselves. This is only one game, but this is what JJ Redick's blueprint. This is what he was talking about when he got hired before the season started, as far as his blueprint. Now he making me feel like that I can get up there and call them plays out to all of the players, and the players they have confidence now in what JJ Redick calls. You see LeBron, he has confidence in JJ Redick. Everybody else, it trickles on down. They have confidence in JJ Redick. So now, that's all I have for the Los Angeles Lakers and Denver Nuggets. The next game I'm going to talk about is the Boston Celtics and the New York Knicks. Now, the New York Knicks, this personally goes out to Stephen A. Smith because he's a big New York Knicks fan. He bleeds orange and blue, orange, blue, and gray. So, Stephen A. Smith and every other New York Knicks fan out there, your New York Knicks are average. They have been average over the last 25 years. I don't have to even go down a list because all you New York Knicks fans know your team throughout the season, throughout the regular season, they are good. But when it gets to that playoff stretch, things are going to start happening. And when it comes to now the New York Knicks, they only played 7, 8 guys last night. They did, and everybody else that didn't play was a coach's decision. You see, Mikal Bridges, he only had 14 points. OG Anunoby had 10 points. Karl Anthony Towns had 24 points. Jalen Brunson, had 22 points. Josh Hart had 20. And then the bench, like I said, the bench didn't really do much. Cameron Payne, 7 points. Mikhail's Bride, 2 points. Larry Shamit, 6 points. And like I've been saying this throughout the season about the New York Knicks. The New York Knicks are not going to make it to the Eastern Conference. America, I'm going to say that again. The New York Knicks are not going to make it to the Eastern Conference. When you look at the standings right now, you have Cleveland, Boston, New York in the top three. But at season's end, I don't see that happening. The Eastern Conference is a two-team race. The Cleveland Cavaliers and the Boston Celtics. I would be surprised if we didn't have the Eastern Conference final matchup as the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Boston Celtics, because everybody else is average at best. New York Knicks, average. Indiana Pacers, they are a young up and coming team. The Milwaukee Bucks, they are still led by Doc Rivers. And we all know with Doc Rivers, if he gets a series lead in the playoffs, he's bound to wet the bed and lose the lead and lose the entire series. The Detroit Pistons, we don't necessarily know about them. Then you have Orlando, Miami, Atlanta, and Chicago. Chicago, they barely hanging on by a thread. But back to the New York Knicks and the Boston Celtics. This is basically Boston basically won this game off of their bench last night, because you can see it, because the New York Knicks bench, they only had 15 bench points last night. The New York Knicks. The Boston Celtics had 21, but the level of efficiency that the Celtics top dogs were playing with pretty much made this game a blowout, and it kept it a blowout. Now, the final score doesn't really tell you how the game went. Now, the Boston Celtics, they had a lead in this game. The largest lead was 22. 22. So, the Boston Celtics, Jason Tatum, 25 points. Kristaps Porzingis had 15. Jrue Holiday had 14. Derek White, 19. And Jaylen Brown had 24. Let me tell you, the Celtics, they trying to repeat. They trying to go for a repeat. And the New York Knicks is not a team that's going to be standing in the way of that. I'm going to just go ahead and tell you now. I've seen the Knicks and the Celtics play 3 times this season, and the Boston Celtics have beaten the New York Knicks all 3 times. Remember opening night? They pretty much shot the lights out from 3-point range. Then the second time, the New York Knicks, they had a bad shooting night in the second game. Now, yesterday's game, the New York Knicks, they had a bad shooting first quarter. First quarter, they could not hit the side of a bomb or a barn. They couldn't hit the side of a basket yesterday. And you see the Celtics, that's why I say the Celtics are going to be in the Eastern Conference Finals. Now, Cleveland, I'm still on the fence about Cleveland a little bit, and everybody is. Everybody is still on the fence about Cleveland. Because we see that the Cavaliers are top dog in the East right now. The Boston Celtics, they have the championship experience. They know what it takes to win a Game 7 on the road or at home. The Cavaliers don't have that experience. That's the hang up with the Cavaliers. They haven't had much playoff experience. Over the last couple of years, they faced Orlando. 2 years ago, they lost to Orlando. Last year, they beat Orlando, lost to the Celtics in the second round. So now, Boston Celtics, Boston Celtics, you could pretty much pencil them in for the Eastern Conference. It's just who is going to be there. Who else in the East is going to be there left to play the Celtics? And beating the Celtics 4 times in a 7-game series with this team that they have, I mean, they have 3-point specialists all up and down the bench. I just don't see a team that is going to beat the Celtics in the East 4 times in a 7-game series. I just don't see that. New York Knicks, you might have a chance in the first round. That all depends on who you play. Now, if the season ended today, the New York Knicks would be playing the Detroit Pistons, and let me tell you, the Pistons ain't no joke. The Pistons are not a joke. So that's all I have for the New York Knicks and the Boston Celtics. The next game I'm going to cover is the Miami Heat and the Milwaukee Bucks. Another game that has impact on playoff positioning coming down the stretch. We know that the Miami Heat are just a average run of the mill team. And I've been saying that all season. Andrew Wiggins, 20 points. Bam Adebayo, 24 points. Khalil Ware, 12 points. Davion Mitchell, 5 points. Tyler Hero, 40 points. That's what basically the Miami Heat has been. They need one guy to carry the whole team and pretty much lose in the first or second round, because that's what it's been over the last couple of years and the year that they made it to the NBA Finals. When you look and see what the Miami Heat have done over the past 3-4 years, 2019 didn't make the playoffs. 2020 made the playoffs. 21 made the playoffs. 22 made the playoffs. 23 made the playoffs by a thread with the 8th seed. Last year they made the playoffs, got bounced out by the Boston Celtics, and this season they are currently 26-29. But the Miami Heat aren't going very far in the playoffs, and everybody keeps talking about Heat culture. And let me tell you, I always give my respects when it comes to Pat Riley and this Heat culture he's talking about. But it's pretty much done ran its course. You're not gonna win. Let me tell you, the Miami Heat, they probably won't even get a game in a playoff series with this roster. Because personally myself, if I was the owner of the Miami Heat, I would not have confidence in my roster right now. You can see Andrew Wiggins, Bam Adebayo, Khalil Ward, Davion Mitchell, Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, Kyle Anderson, Nikola Jokovic, Terry Rozier, Kevin Love, Haywood Smith, Alec Burns, Jamie Jaquez Jr., Felly Larison. I mean that don't give the opponents, they don't see nobody on the Miami Heat roster that is going to give them problems. Tyler Hero, he has his games where he can shoot the lights out, and then he has his games where he can't even buy a basket. So the Miami Heat are just an average team when it comes to this roster. The Milwaukee Bucks, on the other hand, they are I'm going to say this. The Milwaukee Bucks are an above average team with an sometimes average head coach. We know Doc Rivers. We know what his resume speaks of. He won a championship in 2008 with the Boston Celtics. Then he went to the Los Angeles Clippers, made them into a legitimate playoff contender during his regime. Then after that, during his tenure with the LA Clippers, he lost 4 playoff series after being up at least 2-1 in those series. And now we get to his time with the Bucks. He was a Milwaukee Bucks consultant at first, and then after the Milwaukee Bucks fired the previous head coach, they promoted Doc Rivers without anybody having really any back push on it. And now you see the Milwaukee Bucks have an above average roster. Tayshaun Prince, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Kyle Kuzma, Brook Lopez, Damian Lillard, Jericho Sims, Gary Trent Jr., Kevin Porter Jr., AJ Green, Adrian, Andre Jackson Jr., Ryan Rollins, Bobby Portis, Chris Livingston, Tyler Smith, and Liam Robbins. How many points is the Bucks gonna score in a playoff series with all of these players being in the lineup? When it comes to the Milwaukee Bucks, I am going to say this, and I seen this happen a couple years ago. After the Milwaukee Bucks won their championship, I knew that they were going to go on a downward spiral, because the season after they won the championship, they failed to get back to the Eastern Conference Finals. Then the year after that, they fire Mike Budenholzer. And then they put Adrian Mitchell as the head coach. Now this is before Doc Rivers was hired, everybody, so stay with me. Adrian Mitchell, he only had 41 games to coach, so half a season. But with him, he wasn't emphasizing defense. And he didn't have any schematic plays written up for Giannis Antetokounmpo, or this was before they got Damian Lillard. Now, a couple of years ago, they got Damian Lillard, and this experience with Damian Lillard, it really hasn't paid much dividends like we all thought that it was going to do. And now the Milwaukee Bucks are at the number 5th spot in the Eastern Conference currently. So what can the Milwaukee Bucks do? Well, I can tell you what the Milwaukee Bucks are going to do. The Milwaukee Bucks are going to keep on winning, possibly face the team that knocked them out of the playoffs last year in the Indiana Pacers. And when it comes to late game situations in that playoff series, basically the main stuff, it might transpire just like it did last year. The Indiana Pacers probably do win another playoff series over the Milwaukee Bucks. But if that happens, the Milwaukee Bucks now, they have to do a double take. Giannis Antetokounmpo, is he going to stay there after next season? If this season ends in not winning another championship, does Damian Lillard request for a trade going into the offseason? All of these questions need to be on the Milwaukee Bucks front office staff when it comes to what the Milwaukee Bucks can do in the playoffs and who they need to beat in the playoffs. Now, now that's all I have for the Milwaukee Bucks and the Miami Heat. The next game I'm going to cover, this is a team that I recently covered, the Detroit Pistons and the Atlanta Hawks. Now, the Detroit Pistons, they are one of the youngest teams in the NBA, and you can see who is leading the charge for the Detroit Pistons. Cade Cunningham with 38 points, Jalen Duren 13 points, Tim Hardaway Jr. 18 points, Ashur Thompson 14 points, Tobias Harris 12 points, and the Detroit Pistons bench, Dennis Schroeder 16 points, Malik Beasley 24 points, Isaiah Stewart 6, Ronald Holland II 4, Paul Reed 1, and Simon Facecchio 2. So pretty much the Detroit Pistons, like I said, that fan base up there in the Motor City, they need to be proud right now. They do. Because the Detroit Pistons over the last couple of years, it seems like that. It seemed like the organization didn't know what it was doing, whether it was going up, down, or just staying stagnant. And then you get JB Bickerstaff as your head coach. Yeah, as your head coach. And now the Pistons, they are starting to turn the corner. They are 31-26 after last night. They have a chance at making the playoffs for the first time in 9 years. So, the Detroit Pistons, they are a team that's a young up and coming team that's pretty much just trying to gain experience right now. And that's all this is for the Detroit Pistons. That is why I say if they get to the playoffs, I would not be surprised if the Detroit Pistons upset the New York Knicks. I wouldn't be surprised. Now, I know that is a hot take, but what do the New York Knicks have on their bench that can contend with the Detroit Pistons bench? Just giving y'all a couple of things that couple of nuggets that y'all can think about once the show is over with. Now, as far as the Atlanta Hawks, you are one of those teams that every year you always in the thick of it, in the lower ranks of the Eastern Conference, and then when it comes to playoff positioning and play-in tournament positioning, they always, and I do mean always, crack under pressure. Now, not last year, but the year before last, they made it to the playoffs, and they pretty much they gave Boston. Now Boston, they had like Boston gave them a gentleman's sweep, and I could see that happening again too, because Atlanta Hawks, outside of Trae Young, there is nobody else on the team that to me gives their opponent problems. Trae Young, you can pretty much book him for 30 to 35 points a night. Dyson Daniels, 24 points last night. Georges Niang, 27 points last night. But you are not always going to get that on a nightly basis. And that is why, for me, the Atlanta Hawks, They will make it to the play-in tournament. They might win that first or second game in the play-in tournament, but I don't see them going very far outside of that. If they do make it to the playoffs, they will get knocked out in the first round. So that's all I have for the Detroit Pistons and the Atlanta Hawks. The next game I'm going to cover, this was one of the marquee games of last night, and I am going to dissect this out in its entirety for y'all. So, the Memphis Grizzlies are the second team in the Western Conference right now. They are in the second spot. The Cleveland Cavaliers, they are in the first spot. Now, all of the players that are on the Memphis Grizzlies, it's time for the Memphis Grizzlies to turn the corner because the last 4 years, well, excluding last year. So, over the past 4 years, the Grizzlies, they have been making strides, making hay, and improving. But they haven't won a playoff series in a couple years. They haven't. The last time they were in the playoffs, you had the Lakers blowing them out of the playoffs in the elimination game. They gave up 40 points. Well, excuse me. The Los Angeles Lakers scored in a domination of 40, had a 40-point lead, and they won by 40 points. So now the Memphis Grizzlies, who are led by Ja Morant, Jerry Jackson Jr., Jay Wells, Zach Edey, and here's their entire bench. The Memphis Grizzlies, how can I say this? They are a team they are a stagnant team right now. You don't know whether they are going to take that next step and upset a contender because they are a contender themselves, or you don't know you don't know what Memphis Grizzlies team is going to show up when it comes to the playoffs, because it seems like after they get a couple of wins under their belt, what they like to do, they start like to pay attention to the media and pay attention to what every article is saying about them. Now, we live in a time where when you look at your phone and you see a sports article, obviously your mind captures what that article is saying. But as far as the Memphis Grizzlies, they are a team that is based on hype. They are a team that's based on hype, and when that hype runs out, they don't have any answers. So that's what I've been saying over the last 4 years. The Grizzlies has been a team of hype. The Cleveland Cavaliers over the last couple of years, they have gained playoff success. They lost to the Orlando Magic a couple of years ago. Last year, they beat the Orlando Magic in the first round, and the second round they lose to the Boston Celtics. So now, when we look at the Cleveland Cavaliers, Cleveland Cavaliers, we see Donovan Mitchell. He averages 30 points a night. Max Strus, 11. Jared Allen, 13. Isaiah Orko, 6. Evan Mobley, 25 points. And Jared Allen, 13 points. Now, the Cleveland Cavaliers, we all know that they are the top team in the East right now. We know that because of their regular season performance. What will they do in the playoffs that can solidify them as the top team? Because coming into the season, I said no matter what the Cleveland Cavaliers do, I am not going to bet against the Boston Celtics. And I'm not going to change my preseason pick now. But if the Eastern Conference comes down to the Cleveland Cavaliers or the Boston Celtics, I will go with the Boston Celtics. What they are showing me right now, and as far as bench production last night, you had Ty Jerome. You had Ty Jerome with 26 points, DeAndre Hunter with 12, Sam Morrell with 3, and nobody else scored off of their bench. Nobody. So, the Cavaliers in this case, Cavaliers in this case, they can pretty much go ahead, pencil themselves in for a playoff spot. But let's see what can the Cavaliers do when the playoffs start. We know what the Boston Celtics are going to do. We know what every team in the East, we know what they are going to do when it comes to the playoffs. And that is all I have for the Memphis Grizzlies and the Cleveland Cavaliers. The final game that I am going to cover is the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Minnesota Timberwolves. Now, let me tell you, Oklahoma City, top team, the Minnesota Timberwolves, they are set at the 7th spot in the West right now. But don't tell that to Anthony Edwards. Anthony Edwards, he says that the Minnesota Timberwolves can beat anybody on any given day. And he is right about that. The Oklahoma City Thunder, I like what they are doing, but one thing about it is when it comes to playoff experience, that's one thing that I always harp on when it comes to getting ready for the playoffs. Ladies and gentlemen, the past 3 instances where the Oklahoma City Thunder have been in the playoffs, they've lost all 3 times. Last year, they lost to the Dallas Mavericks, the eventual Western Conference participant in the NBA Finals. The year before that, they lost. And the year before that, they lost. So, pretty much, it's been pretty much, the OKC Thunder has been a work in progress. And you can see Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, he is the leading force for the Oklahoma City Thunder with 37 points. Chet Holmgren, 19 points. Jalen Williams, 18 points. Isaiah Hartenstein, 12 points. Luguentz Dort, 4. And then you see the Oklahoma City Thunder bench players. Oklahoma City, they are a good team. But just like I said, when it comes to the Cleveland Cavaliers, I put the Oklahoma City Thunder in the same umbrella. We have got to see what the Thunder are going to do in the playoffs, because we cannot go off of previous regular season success. We know that they are great in the regular season, but what can they do in the playoffs that will change our minds and not just say that, oh, this is just a regular season hype team? Because over the past couple of years, the Thunder has just been full of hype, just like I said a few minutes ago with the Memphis Grizzlies. Nothing but hype. OKC Thunder, as of right now, they are a good team. They are one of the youngest teams in the NBA. Let's see what they can do in the playoffs. Now, let's shift on over to the Minnesota Timberwolves, and my final take of the day for the Minnesota Timberwolves. Let me tell you, Minnesota Timberwolves, they are a force to be reckoned with. We know that they are led by Anthony Edwards. He had 29 points last night. Mike Conley, 9 points. Nas Reed, 22 points. Jaden McDaniel, 17 points. Jalen Clark, 14 points. And their bench players, Luke Garza, 7. Nickel Alexander Walker, 18. Terrence Shannon Jr., 7. Robert Dillingham, 0. So, the Minnesota Timberwolves, we know that they are currently in that 7th spot, but let me tell you, I could see the Minnesota Timberwolves making a push for that 5th or 6th spot. I don't see them going much higher than 5th because Houston Rockets, they are right there. They are also one of the youngest teams in the NBA. The Clippers, I feel like the bottom is gonna fall out of the barrel when it comes to the Clippers sooner or later. Dallas, they are injury riddled. Anthony Davis is out. For Anthony Davis is day to day actually when it comes to the Dallas Mavericks. Golden State, who knows? Golden State, they might make a push to get to the playoffs. Sacramento Kings are an average team, and you can see it by their record, 28-28. And outside of that, when it comes to those teams who are in the play-in tournament bracket, the one team that I give the most confidence to is the Golden State Warriors, because Golden State Warriors, they have enough experienced players when it comes to being one of those bottom of the totem pole teams when it comes to the playoffs and not giving your opponent much competition. I've seen the Golden State Warriors do that time and time again over the last 10 to 15 years. They don't have much competition when it comes to a team like, I'm just going to say this. Everybody knows what happened back in 2007. So, 2007, Dallas Mavericks, top team in the Western Conference, and you had the Golden State Warriors as the worst team in the Western Conference. But the Golden State Warriors upset everybody and the Dallas Mavericks and won that series 4-1. They won that series 4-1, and I would not be surprised if the Golden State Warriors could possibly do that again, but it's a greater degree of difficulty. That's why I say the Minnesota Timberwolves, they are a much younger team. They don't have as much playoff experience and success like the Golden State Warriors. But when it comes to a team in the Western Conference play-in tournament bracket, if I had to put money on it, I would put money on Golden State to at least make it a series. At least make it a series between whoever they play. Now, let me tell you, the Golden State Warriors, they might get blown out whoever they play in the playoffs. But when you have Steph Curry, he is going to keep the Warriors in it. Then you have Jimmy Butler, who is also another dog who is not afraid to take the last shot. And Jimmy Butler is a player who can find his own shot. That's why I say Golden State Warriors, let's keep our eyes out on them, because the Golden State Warriors to the Los Angeles Lakers, only 4 games separate teams 4 through 9 in the Western Conference. So there is a lot that can go on between now and the rest of the NBA season. And with that, those are my reactions to the weekend of the NBA, to all the marquee matchups in the NBA. Please like, comment, share, subscribe. Click the notification bell to get notified of all of my reaction videos, shows, and other content. Also, please like, share, and follow Key City Sports on Instagram. We are going we are going through an expansion on both Key Town Sports and Key City Sports. So, everybody who has been watching the show on a daily basis, thank you, thank you. Tell your tell your family members, friends, whoever, come on in, tune on in to Key Town Sports or Key City Sports on Instagram. And remember, one last thing, the key is always on time.